good news for the demand of sustainable investing as the global green economy has now topped the $10 trillion mark. Tim Nash is founder of Good Investing. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
So we've been talking about this for a long time, like 10 years, plus years.
That's
when
right.
we first started talking about green investments and the green economy, it was very specific, it was very narrow, and the interest was kind of limited to people with a very sort of clear agenda. Is it now everywhere? I mean, is now when we say green investing, is it just everybody is investing green?
Yeah, I mean, if you own a traditional index fund, this is going to be still a small fraction of your portfolio, but at least it's a fraction of your portfolio.
Yeah.
So it should be in there no matter what. But now what we're seeing is that this is growing so much faster than a lot of the traditional sectors that investors that are a little more ahead of the curve are jumping on the bandwagon, realizing that there's faster growth, there's more money to be made. And so we're starting to see the numbers climb quite dramatically.
So in terms of what we call, when we say a green investment, there was a time when it was just a green bond.
Right.
And now, of course, you could say Beyond Meat is a green investment. It's into other sectors. How much opportunity does that create?
Yeah, across sectors, it's huge. So I talk a lot about the similarities with the rise of the internet, where that was something that started just within the tech sector, but is now every company in the world needs to have their web-based strategy. And it's the same thing when it comes to sustainability or these green sectors, that it's impacting absolutely every sector. I mean, car companies are really jumping on board with electric cars. We've got consumer sectors. Beyond Meat has been a great story in terms of that IPO, one of the most successful IPOs, maybe even ever, let alone this year. So there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of excitement, and there's a lot of growth opportunity here.
And I mean, Beyond Meat to me is a really interesting example because you wouldn't think of it necessarily as green, except that, of course, there's a sustainability issue when it comes to real meat. God help us. So are there going to be other categories like that are existing industries, and there'll be whole new things we haven't even thought of yet that will replace them?
I hope so. I mean, I think we're going to see some innovation, certainly agriculture. So our report looked at a lot of disruption there. Even these things called halophytes, which are plants that grow in salt water. So with fresh water being more scarce, right, looking at what type of crops can grow in salt water. And then from there, really, again, it's going to be every sector. Now, I would argue that a lot of the technology that we need in terms of creating this low carbon economy already exists. So the time for these pilot projects and these new innovative technologies, really it's about scaling up existing proven technologies. They're hitting these economies of scales and are really getting cheaper. And I would say that's the big story here, rather than this sort of radical innovation. It's really about green technologies becoming cost competitive with the old status quo ones. So
when is the right time to invest in sort of one of these new sustainable kind of investments? Is it early stage? Do you wait till it's more mature? What do you tell people?
So what I tell people is diversify. So you don't want to put all of your eggs in any one basket. I don't like picking and choosing individual companies or specific technologies. So what I would say is carve out part of your portfolio, part of your investments, maybe 5 to 10%, to be able to bet on specific sectors. So I like using ETFs with a wide range of different companies and technologies inside of it. But really, I mean, the best time to invest would have been probably 5 or 6 years ago. We've seen some good growth. The second best time, of course, is today.
So what will drive the growth so that this is fully mainstream? What are you predicting about how big this market will get?
Yeah, so, I mean, it's so hard to forecast these things. Often what happens is it goes very slowly and then all at once. So the two main drivers that I'm keeping my eye on is, number one, consumer demand. So something like Beyond Meat, when I see these signs of A&W selling out of burgers right away, right? And so as consumer demand shifts, the second piece is going to be politics. That right now we have a lot of conservative governments in power that aren't too supportive of these things. If that political pendulum swings back, specifically in the US, a lot of momentum around things like a Green New Deal, that would be a clear signal to the economy, and I would expect to see these stocks really surge.
And what about, I mean, we have seen well-meaning government policies actually intervening in these markets in a way that can really crush parts of them. Is it just diversification that guards against policy changes down the road that could really change the market?
That's right. And I mean, again, so definitely diversify as an investor, but also for governments, don't pick and choose specific technologies. Implement these broader market-based solutions like carbon pricing, right? Put the incentives in place broadly, and then let the market figure out which specific technologies to adopt.
And we're seeing more and more funds that are specific to this, as you say, an index fund is still a small slice. When does it become like the internet? When does it become that every company has to have a component that's green?
Yeah, I mean, my guess would be within the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah, I think it's happening really, really fast. We're already seeing it with corporate social responsibility and sort of the evolution of that CSR more as sort of a marketing ploy.
Yep.
And now we're starting to see actual strategic investments, right? But it's not, I see a lot of Teslas on the road right now. I think it's a pretty good sign as we start to see more electric cars on the road. You know that that market is ready to go.
Tim, great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tim Nash is founder of Good Investing.